Grandma, they're going to make you sign papers tonight to take your money. My 11-year-old grandson whispered it like he was afraid the walls would repeat it back to my son and his wife. And in that second, every sweet detail of the evening suddenly made sense. The science fair celebration, the expensive dinner, the candles, the fake warmth. It wasn't a family night. It was a trap. But what they didn't know was this. While they were rehearsing how to steal my independence, I was already planning how to expose them. And when I found what was hidden inside those papers, I realized they weren't just after my money. They were preparing to erase me. So I smiled, played the confused old woman they expected, and let them believe they were winning. Because the moment they pushed that folder across the table, they started a fight they weren't ready for. Grandma, they're going to make you sign papers tonight to take your money. My 11-year-old grandson, Lucas, didn't say it loud. He said it the way kids do when they're scared of the truth getting caught in the air. A whisper, a warning. A match dropped into a room full of dry wood, and the second those words left his mouth, I felt something inside me snap into place. Because suddenly, the expensive dinner, the candles, the sudden kindness, the family night, the coordinated smiles. It wasn't love. It was a setup. And what my family didn't know was that I wasn't as helpless as they'd been practicing for me to be. Not even close. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Before we go deeper, leave a comment telling me where you're watching from, and subscribe to the Never Too Old channel, because if you've ever been underestimated, used, or treated like you should be grateful for crumbs, you were in the right place. Now back to the story. The phone rang at exactly 7:22 a.m. on a Thursday. I remember the time because I was staring at the kitchen clock, waiting for my coffee to finish brewing, still making enough for 2 cups like my husband Frank might walk in any second. 4 years without him, and my hands still poured like he was here. The phone rang again. I picked it up. Mom! My son Tom sounded bright, too bright, like someone trying to sell a smile. You're going to love this. I leaned against the counter, listening carefully. Tom's voice had that forced excitement I remembered from when he was 12 and trying to convince me he hadn't broken Mrs. Peterson's window with a baseball. Love what, honey? Lucas won 2nd place in the district's science fair. His solar-powered water filtration system beat out 60 other kids. My heart genuinely lifted. That boy was brilliant. Always building, always asking questions, always trying to fix things adults complained about and accepted. That's wonderful, I said, and I meant it. He must be so proud. He is. He is. Tom rushed the words like he couldn't let the warmth sit too long. And, the awards assembly is tonight at 7. Lucas asked if you'd come. I smiled without even thinking. Of course I'll come. When have I ever missed one of his events? Right, exactly. And then Tom's voice shifted, just slightly, like a shoe scraping against the floor before a step. But Jessica thought maybe afterward, since it's such a special occasion, you could come back to our place. We could order pizza, celebrate properly, make it a real family night. There it was. Not the invitation, the pitch, the tiny pause before Jessica thought, like he was reading from a script and waiting for the next line. I'd spent 30 years running Richardson's family restaurants. I'd heard every kind of soft sell people used when they wanted something but didn't want to say it. And my son was doing it now. That sounds lovely, I said, keeping my tone gentle. Just Lucas's celebration. Well, yes. Mostly. Tom rushed again. But Jessica and I have been meaning to talk to you about some family planning stuff. Nothing urgent. Just ideas about how we can help each other out better. Family planning, help each other out. Those words were so polished they practically shined. Polished words usually covered dirty intentions. What kind of help? I asked casually. Like I didn't hear the tension. Oh, brainstorming. Tom laughed, but it didn't land right. Jessica's been reading about families staying connected, making sure everyone's taken care of as we get older, that sort of thing. As we get older. There it was again, age wrapped like a ribbon around my throat. I walked to my kitchen window, phone pressed to my ear, and looked out at the backyard Frank and I had landscaped together. The roses he planted still bloomed every spring like they had something to prove. Honest, predictable, unlike my son's voice right now. Mom? Tom asked. You still there? I'm here, I said. just thinking about what to wear to Lucas's big night. Great. So you'll come to dinner after. I could almost hear Jessica in the background, standing there with crossed arms, nodding like a manager approving a cashier's script. I'll be there, I said. Wouldn't miss celebrating my grandson. After I hung up, I stood in the quiet kitchen and let the silence settle. A normal invitation shouldn't feel like a transaction. But it did, and the worst part, a small piece of me already knew why. Jessica had been circling this topic for months, not directly, never directly, but in little stories, little concerns, little comments planted like weeds. Did you hear about my friend's mom? She got tricked by scammers. It's so sad when older people try to manage everything alone. Assisted living is actually so freeing. And always, always. That glance at my house, that comment about how big it was, how hard it must be, how responsible. It would be to simplify. I wasn't paranoid. I was experienced. There's a difference. So I poured my coffee, sat down, and made myself a quiet promise. Tonight I would watch, I would listen, and I would not let anyone rush me into anything, no matter how sweet they sounded. Jefferson Elementary's multi-purpose room smelled like disinfectant and leftover lunch. I arrived 15 minutes early like I always did for Lucas's events, and took my usual seat in the third row. Parents around me held phones up like shields ready to record. I kept mine in my purse. Some moments were meant to be felt, not posted. At exactly 7, Tom and Jessica walked in. Tom scanned the room until he spotted me, then waved too quickly. Jessica looked different. Her smile was brighter than usual, almost practiced. She wore a burgundy dress she saved for times she wanted to look like a good woman. "Helen," she said, sliding into the seat beside me with unusual energy. "You look wonderful. That color is perfect on you." I blinked. In 12 years of marriage to my son, Jessica had never once commented on my clothes. Not once. Tonight she was studying me like a buyer inspecting a house. Tom sat on my other side, fidgeting with his tie. "Great turnout, huh? Lucas is going to be so excited to see you." "Where else would I be?" I said warmly. But my eyes kept catching their little glances. Quick looks exchanged like signals, like a team checking if the play was going as planned. The principal began calling names. When Lucas walked across the stage to accept his certificate, my heart swelled for real. His grin was enormous and he waved straight at me. I waved back, my throat tightening with pride. Jessica leaned closer and murmured, "He's getting so tall." Then she added, softly, "Growing up so fast. It makes you think about the future, doesn't it? How quickly things change." It was such a strange thing to say in a moment like that. Like she couldn't even let a child's achievement be about a child. Tom jumped in immediately, which is why we've been talking about making sure he has every advantage, the best schools, college planning, all of that. I nodded slowly. Resources, I thought. That's what they were really saying without saying it. After the ceremony, Lucas ran over, certificate clutched in both hands like it was treasure. "Grandma, did you see? Mr. Harrison said my filtration system could actually help people in places where they don't have clean water." I hugged him tightly. "I'm so proud of you. Your grandfather would have been amazed." For a moment, Lucas's expression flickered. Not joy, something else. Worry. Then Jessica's hand landed on his shoulder, firm, controlling, like she was steering him. "Lucas, go thank your teacher," she said quickly. "Grandma Helen is coming to our house for dinner." Lucas looked between his parents and me, and the tension in his shoulders didn't match the night. "Okay," he said quietly. "I'll meet you by the car." He walked away like a kid carrying something heavier than a certificate. I watched him go, and a cold feeling crawled up my spine. Jessica turned to me with that bright smile again. "We thought we'd order from that pizza place you like," she said, touching my arm. "Make it special, and it'll give us a chance to talk about those family ideas." She touched my arm, He same way our best waitresses used to touch customers when they wanted bigger tips. It shouldn't have bothered me. But it did. As we walked to the parking lot, I noticed the little details. Tom walking slightly behind Jessica instead of beside her. Jessica checking her purse twice, like she had something important inside. Their energy wasn't celebratory. It was controlled, focused. like they were marching toward a finish line. And the closer we got to their car, the more I felt it. Tonight wasn't about Lucas. Lucas was the bait. And if my instincts were right, I was the target. At their house, everything felt staged. Not messy like a real family night, not casual. The living room was cleaned like company was coming. There were cloth napkins out, actual wine glasses, candles. Jessica didn't do candles for regular pizza nights. Jessica did candles when she wanted someone to agree with her. "Make yourself comfortable, Helen," she called from the kitchen. "I'm just placing the order." "Wine?" Tom asked, already holding a glass. "Yes, thank you," I said. Lucas sat on the floor, arranging his science fair materials carefully on the coffee table, like he needed something steady to hold on to. I sat beside him. "Tell me more about your filtration system." And finally, his face brightened. "Well, the solar panel powers this pump," he started, explaining with confidence. I listened, genuinely proud, but I also watched his eyes, because every few seconds, Lucas glanced toward the kitchen, toward his parents, like he was counting minutes, like he was waiting for something bad to begin. Tom sat across from us, his wine already half gone. Yes, flicking toward the kitchen too. Then Lucas suddenly stood up. "Dad," he said quietly. "Can you go check if Mom needs help?" Tom hesitated. "She's fine, buddy." Lucas's voice got stronger, urgent. "I want to show Grandma my room, right now, before we eat." Tom's face tightened. "Maybe later." Lucas looked at me, and in his eyes I saw something no kid should have to carry. Fear. Urgency. A plea. "I really want to show her now," he said again, and his voice shook just a little. I stood up smoothly like nothing was wrong. "It's fine," I said, smiling. "I'd love to see what he's been working on." Lucas didn't waste time. He led me upstairs fast, like he was racing against an invisible clock, and the second we entered his room, he shut the door, turned to me, and whispered the sentence that shattered my whole night. "Grandma, they're going to make you sign papers tonight to take your money." My breath caught, but I didn't let my face show it. Not yet. I knelt down, holding his small shoulders gently. "What kind of papers?" I asked softly. Lucas swallowed hard. "I don't know exactly, but I heard them practicing. Mom keeps saying you have too much money for someone living alone, and it's dangerous. She says you might make bad decisions or get tricked." My hands went cold. "What else did you hear?" "Dad doesn't want to do it," he whispered. "He says it feels wrong, but Mom says it's for your protection. She said if you don't sign, they'll do it another way." Another way. That phrase hit me like a warning bell. Lucas's eyes filled with tears. "But Grandma, you're not confused. You're not. You're you." I pulled him into a hug and held him tight. And while I held him, I felt two emotions collide inside me. One was heartbreak, the other was something hotter, something sharper. Because anyone who uses an innocent child as bait to trap a grandmother isn't just being selfish, they're being cruel, and cruel people don't stop on their own. I pulled back and looked Lucas in the eyes. "Listen to me," I said, steady and calm. "You did the right thing telling me, and no matter what happens, I will protect you, okay?" He nodded quickly. "You're going to go back downstairs," I continued, "and you're going to act normal, just like everything is fine. But, I promise you," I said, firm but gentle, "I won't sign anything tonight." Lucas let out a shaky breath. "Okay." I took his hand, and as we walked back downstairs, my mind was already 10 steps ahead, because Tom and Jessica had made one mistake, a huge one. They thought they were dealing with a confused old woman. They had no idea what they just started. When we walked back downstairs, Jessica was already in the living room, not in the kitchen, not on the phone, not rushing to set plates out like a normal pizza night. She was standing near the side table like she'd been waiting for us to return. And the moment I saw her, I noticed it, a manila folder, plain, thick, sitting there like it belonged, like it had always been part of the decor, but it hadn't. I knew every corner of their house. I'd helped them unpack when they moved in. I'd watched Lucas take his first steps on that same carpet. That folder was new, and it wasn't there by accident. Jessica smiled as if she hadn't just been caught preparing to hand me something that could change my life. Perfect timing, she said brightly. The food should be here any minute. Lucas, honey, why don't you show Grandma your certificate again? Lucas nodded, too fast, like a robot following instructions. He sat back down and opened his science notebook, pretending to read, but his eyes kept flicking up, watching his parents, watching me. Tom came in behind us with a fresh glass of wine for himself. Third glass, maybe. We still hadn't eaten. Frank used to call that liquid courage, the kind men drink when they're about to do something they know is wrong. Jessica sat on the edge of the sofa, angled toward me like a counselor, or a salesperson. Helen, she began, voice soft and sweet. Tom and I have been talking a lot lately about family security. There it was again, that polished phrase, family security, making sure everyone's protected and taken care of. I smiled politely. Inside I was ice. Of course, I said. That sounds important. Tom cleared his throat. Mom, we worry about you. In that big house, by yourself, and after what happened to Aunt Ruth. I blinked. What happened to Aunt Ruth? Tom's eyes darted to Jessica. Jessica jumped in smoothly. She got confused toward the end, nearly got scammed by one of those phone calls. You know, the ones where they say your computer is infected. I stared at her. Because I'd spoken to Ruth 2 months before she died. She was sharp as a tack. The only thing she'd been confused about was why Tom never called. I thought Ruth died of a heart attack at 73, I said calmly. And she handled her finances just fine. Jessica's smile twitched, but she recovered. Well, yes. But there were little signs, forgetting appointments, mixing up dates. Families always wished they'd stepped in sooner. I could practically hear the script in her mouth, and I could see Tom sinking into it like a man too tired to fight. The doorbell rang. Tom jumped up like he was relieved for the interruption. Pizza, he said too loudly. But instead of bringing it into the kitchen like normal people, he came back and sat down next to Jessica. Right beside her, a united front, 2 against 1. Jessica placed the manila folder on her lap and patted it gently, like it was a gift. Helen, she said, we found something that helps families handle complicated things. Complicated things. Another euphemism. She opened the folder and pulled out papers that looked official, too official for a casual family dinner. I didn't reach for them. I didn't flinch. I just waited. These are basic power of attorney forms, Jessica said, speaking slowly like she was explaining something to a child. They'd allow Tom and me to help you with banking, bill paying, things like that. So you're protected. Tom nodded quickly. It's just help, Mom. Just support. I leaned forward slightly and let my eyes sweep the top page. Durable power of attorney. Financial. My stomach tightened. Below it I saw the edges of more documents. Healthcare directives, living will language, and something else. Thicker paper, with court-looking formatting. My instinct screamed, because power of attorney didn't need that. This seems like more than paying bills, I said evenly. Jessica laughed lightly. Oh, it's just comprehensive. Better to handle everything now than later. Later, when I couldn't fight. When I'd be too old. When they could tell everyone I didn't understand. I looked directly at Tom. Have you consulted a lawyer? Jessica answered before Tom could. Yes. Our attorney said these are standard. Our attorney, not mine. Not someone neutral. Their attorney, the one they paid, the one who heard their version of the story. The one who didn't have to live with the consequences. I set my hands in my lap and kept my voice calm. What exactly would these papers allow you to do? Tom shifted. Just basic things. And if I wanted to make a large purchase? I asked. Or change my will? Jessica's smile tightened. We just want to discuss those kinds of decisions as a family. Make sure you weren't being pressured. Pressured? By who? By the people sitting across from me with legal papers and candlelight? Lucas's pencil snapped in his notebook. A tiny sound, but loud enough in that room to feel like a scream. I glanced at him. He didn't look up, but his shoulders were stiff, like he was holding his breath. That's when I knew. This wasn't a suggestion. This was a trap. So I did what I learned to do after decades in business. When someone tries to corner you in a deal, You don't argue. You don't explode. You don't show emotion. You buy time. This is a lot to take in, I said softly. I'd need time to think. Tom exhaled in relief like he'd been drowning. Of course, Mom. Take your time. But Jessica leaned forward, urgency cracking through her sweetness. Our attorney did say it's better to do this sooner rather than later, before issues arise. I tilted my head. What issues? Jessica's eyes stayed locked on mine. Memory problems. Confusion. If we wait too long, the courts might have to get involved. Ah, there it was. The real threat hiding behind the smile. If I didn't sign willingly, they'd try to take it another way, exactly what Lucas warned. I nodded slowly, like I was considering it. Then I put on my best frail old lady face, the one people underestimate. Well, I sighed, my eyes aren't what they used to be for fine print. I'll need my reading glasses at home. And honestly, all this talk has given me a bit of a headache. Jessica's expression softened instantly, like she smelled victory. Oh, I can read them with you right now, she offered quickly. Explain anything confusing. No, I said gently. I don't want to be a bother. I'll review them at home. Tom stood up, eager. I'll pack you some pizza. Jessica gathered the papers neatly and pressed the folder into my hands. Take your time, she said, but her voice sharpened at the end. Just don't wait too long. I smiled. Sweetly, perfectly. I understand, I said. Lucas hugged me at the door, and his arm squeezed tighter than usual. And when he pulled away, he slipped something small into my coat pocket. I didn't react. I just kissed his forehead. I love you, I whispered. I love you too, he whispered back, voice shaking. Then I walked to my car holding that folder like it weighed nothing. But inside, it weighed everything, because now I knew the truth. My son and his wife weren't planning to help. They were planning to take control. And as I drove home, one thought kept repeating in my head like a drumbeat. They think they're ahead, but I haven't even started yet. When I got inside my quiet house, I locked the door, set the folder on my kitchen table, and reached into my pocket. Lucas's little folded note was warm from his hand. I opened it, and the first line made my blood run cold. I unfolded Lucas's note with hands that were suddenly too cold, not shaky, not weak, just cold, like my body already knew what my mind was about to read. His handwriting was careful, the kind of neat printing kids use when they want to be taken seriously. And the message was short, too short for how heavy it felt. Grandma, they said if you don't sign tomorrow, they're going to tell everyone you have dementia. Mom has been calling your friends. I love you, Lucas. For a second, I just stared at the words, because power of attorney papers were one thing. But this was worse. This meant Jessica wasn't just trying to take my money. She was trying to take my reputation, my voice, my relationships, my place in the world. Because if people believed I had dementia, then anything I said after that wouldn't matter. Every protest would sound like confusion. Every boundary would be called paranoia, and every refusal would become proof. I set the note down and looked at the folder again, the manila folder that Jessica had pressed into my hands like a gift. My kitchen was silent except for the hum of the refrigerator and the ticking of the clock Frank bought on our first anniversary. Tick, 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 time, that's what they were using against me. The rush, the urgency, the before it's too late. I opened the folder and spread the papers across the table like I was preparing for war, because in a way, I was. At first glance, Jessica had been careful. The top document was the friendly one, durable power of attorney. It was designed to look helpful, simple, responsible. But I didn't stop at the first page. I flipped through every sheet slowly, reading the headings, scanning the fine print, circling phrases with a pen. And then I found it, not in the first stack, not where she'd pointed, but tucked underneath, like a knife hidden under a napkin. A document titled, Petition for Emergency Guardianship. My name was printed right there, under allegedly incapacitated person. My stomach dropped. They weren't just asking me to sign papers. They were preparing to declare me incompetent, even if I refused. This wasn't family planning. This was a takeover. I sat back in my chair and let out a slow breath through my nose. Frank used to say, "If someone shows you who they are, Helen, believe them the first time." Tonight, my family had shown me, and the most painful part was realizing it wasn't just Jessica. Tom had helped bring me into that room. Tom had sat there. Tom had watched his wife lay the trap. Even if he didn't want to do it, he still did it. And that meant I couldn't trust him to protect me. Not yet, maybe not ever. I picked up my phone. My fingers moved before my emotions could stop them. Because feelings don't win fights like this. Preparation does. I scrolled to a name I hadn't dialed in years, Patricia Mills. Patricia was more than my friend. She was the kind of woman who didn't panic. She acted. We'd met 27 years ago when our kids were small and we both ran businesses. And when Frank died, Patricia was the one who showed up with food, receipts, and a legal checklist I didn't even know I needed. I pressed call. She picked up on the second ring. "Helen?" Her voice sharpened immediately. "It's late. Are you okay?" "Patricia," I said, keeping my voice calm even though my heart was pounding. "I need legal help. Tom and Jessica brought me power of attorney papers tonight. And there's a guardianship petition in here." There was a pause. A quiet pause that told me Patricia was already switching into problem-solving mode. "Do not sign anything," she said firmly. "I haven't. Good. Tomorrow morning, bring every page, every envelope, every note." I swallowed. "They've also threatened to tell people I have dementia." Patricia's voice turned to steel. "Then we move fast. And we get ahead of the story." I felt a tight knot in my chest loosen just a little, because hearing someone else say we reminded me I wasn't alone. "Thank you," I whispered. "Helen," she said softer now, "you did the right thing calling me tonight. Go lock your doors. Get some sleep if you can. Tomorrow we start protecting you." I hung up and stared at the documents again. One call wasn't enough, not with what I'd just found, so I made the second call. Richard Blake, my banker. The man who'd handled my accounts for over a decade. He knew my patterns. He knew my voice. He knew what normal looked like for me. If someone had been sniffing around my finances, Richard would know, he answered, sounding surprised. "Mrs. Richardson, is everything all right?" "Richard," I said, "has anyone been asking about my accounts recently? Anyone at all?" A pause. "Then actually, yes, your son came in 2 weeks ago." My hand tightened around the phone. "What did he ask?" "He asked general questions," Richard said carefully, "about managing a parent's finances, what authority would be needed, what documents banks accept, the usual things people ask when they're planning to step in." 2 weeks ago, while I was sitting in my garden, thinking my biggest worry was weeds and weather. 2 weeks ago, they were preparing to take my life apart. "Richard," I said slowly, "I need security flags placed on all my accounts immediately. Of course. No access without my direct authorization," I continued. "No changes, no new signers, no helpful family visits. If anyone calls claiming I'm confused, you call me directly. Understood?" "Understood," Richard said. "I'll put notes on everything tonight." I swallowed hard. "Thank you." When I hung up, the silence in my kitchen felt different, less lonely, more focused, because now I had my first line of defense. But the truth? Defense wasn't enough. If Jessica had already been planting dementia rumors, then she wasn't waiting for me to think it over. She was building a case, a fake case. And if I didn't act fast, she'd walk into court saying I was paranoid, confused, irrational. And people might believe her, not because it was true, but because she'd said it first. That's how stories work. First story becomes reality. Second story becomes excuse. So I sat there with Frank's clock ticking behind me, and I thought about something I'd learned in business. When someone tries to steal your restaurant, they don't start by taking the cash register. They start by poisoning the staff against you. They start by telling customers you're losing it. They start by making your own people doubt you. Jessica wasn't just coming for my money. She was coming for my identity. I picked up Lucas's note again, rereading it, feeling the weight of those words. "Mom has been calling your friends." That meant the next part of the plan was already in motion, and that meant my next call couldn't be to a professional. It had to be personal, because tomorrow morning, before Jessica could spin her lies further, I needed my friends to hear the truth from me. While I still had the power of my own voice, I pulled out my address book, my old one, the paper one, because I didn't trust everything to a phone. I ran my finger down names, Patricia, Richard, and then Martha, June, Elaine, women who'd known me for decades, women who'd watched me run restaurants, raise a son, bury a husband, and still stand tall. If Jessica thought she could call them first and poison them against me, she didn't know my generation. We don't fall apart quietly. We don't hand over our lives because someone smiles and says it's for our own good. I took a deep breath. Then I started dialing, because if Jessica wanted to start a story about me, I was going to finish it. The first person I called after Patricia and the bank wasn't a lawyer. It wasn't the police. It wasn't even Tom. It was Martha Green, because Martha had one gift that made her dangerous in situations like this. She didn't gossip. She verified. And in a world where people try to control you by controlling what others believe about you, that kind of friend is priceless. She answered on the third ring, her voice half asleep. Helen, honey, it's almost 10 at night. Are you all right? Martha, I said steady, I need you to listen to me carefully, and I need you to believe me before you hear anything else. That woke her up. What's going on? Tom and Jessica tried to get me to sign power of attorney papers tonight, I said. And there's a guardianship petition in the documents. They're planning to claim I have dementia if I don't sign. There was a sharp inhale on the other end. Helen, are you sure? I'm sure, I said firmly. And I'm calling you because Lucas warned me Jessica has been calling my friends, planting the idea that I'm declining. If you get a call from her, I need you to know it's a lie. Martha went quiet for a beat. Then she said something that made me want to cry and laugh at the same time. Oh, Helen. That woman has always been a snake. My throat tightened. You've noticed? Honey, I noticed the second she started calling you Helen instead of Mom like a normal daughter-in-law. Martha's voice sharpened. What do you want me to do? I exhaled. If she calls, you tell her you spoke to me tonight and I'm perfectly fine. And then you tell me immediately. Don't argue with her. Just let her know I'm not isolated. Martha's tone turned fierce. You're not isolated. Not on my watch. After I hung up, I didn't waste time. I called June Holloway next, then Elaine Foster, then Patricia's sister Nadine, who volunteered at the community centre and seemed to know everyone within a 5-mile radius. With every call, I repeated the same thing. They tried to make me sign papers. There's a guardianship petition. They're going to claim dementia if I refuse. If you hear anything, call me first. By the time I finished, my voice was hoarse, but my heart felt strangely lighter, because I could picture it. Jessica making her calls with that concerned voice. Oh, we're worried about Helen. She's been forgetful, she's not herself. And then my friends responding. Oh, really? That's funny. Because I spoke to Helen last night and she sounded sharper than ever. Jessica needed me alone to make her story work. That's how people like her operate. They separate you from your allies. They weaken your credibility before they strike. But I'd gotten ahead of her story. And that's when I realized something else too. This wasn't just about legal documents. This was about power, about control, about who gets believed. And Jessica was betting that people would believe a younger woman playing concerned caregiver over an older woman who dared to say no. I didn't sleep much that night. I tried, truly. I lay in my bed staring at the ceiling where Frank used to snooze softly beside me. I could almost hear his voice. Don't let them rush you, Helen. Don't let them corner you. Around 2 a.m., I got up and made tea. Then I sat at my kitchen table with that folder again. This time, I didn't just read. I documented. I took photos of every page with my phone. I wrote down the names of any attorneys mentioned. I circled phrases that gave them authority. And when I found something that made my skin crawl, I held my breath. There was a section in the power of attorney document that allowed the agent, Tom, to make gifts on my behalf. Gifts. That one word could drain an account without ever calling it theft, and Jessica knew it. Jessica would talk about helping Lucas and family security, and suddenly money would move. Legally, quietly. I wrote it down. Then I checked the guardianship petition again. It wasn't filed yet. Not officially. It was prepared. ready, like a gun loaded and sitting on the table. All they needed was the right moment. And by morning, I knew what moment that would be, if I refused to sign. Jessica would say, "See, she's paranoid, she's confused, she doesn't understand we're helping." And then she'd file, maybe with a doctor, maybe with a friend, maybe with a fake evaluation. Lucas had said, they'll do it another way. What I didn't know yet was just how far Jessica was willing to go. Friday morning, I woke up before the sun. Not because I was anxious, because I was ready. I dressed neatly, nothing dramatic, just a clean blouse, a cardigan, and my pearl earrings. Those pearls were Frank's gift to me on our 20th anniversary, and I wore them that day because I needed to feel like myself, strong, grounded, not a confused old woman in slippers. At 8:30 a.m., Patricia met me at her office. She took one look at the folder, and her expression hardened. "Helen," she said quietly, "this is serious, I know." She flipped through the pages, faster than I could follow, marking sections with sticky tabs: power of attorney, healthcare proxy, living will, and then her eyes landed on the guardianship petition. Her jaw clenched. "They were going to move on you whether you signed or not," she muttered. I felt my stomach drop again, even though I already suspected it. Patricia looked up at me. "Do you know the biggest mistake they made?" "What?" "They showed you their playbook," she said. "Now we can counter it." She slid a notepad toward me. "Here's what we do today," she said. "We secure your assets, we create your own legal documents with people you trust, and we prepare for the possibility that they file anyway." People you trust. My mind went straight to Lucas, then to Patricia, then to Martha, and then to a name I hadn't said out loud yet. Frank's brother, George, a man who never liked Jessica, a man who saw through her the first day she walked into my house and commented on my expensive furniture. Patricia continued, "You also need to think about who could testify that you're competent. Friends, professionals, anyone who interacts with you regularly." I nodded slowly. "Oh, I have people," I said. "And I meant it." Patricia leaned back. "Good. Because if she's already calling your friends, she's preparing a case. That means we assume she's willing to lie under oath." A cold chill ran through me. Lie under oath. This was bigger than a greedy daughter-in-law. This was someone who didn't see me as human, just as an obstacle. Patricia tapped the folder. "I want you to be ready for something, Helen." "What?" "If they push this, Jessica may try to provoke you," she said. "Make you seem unstable, get you angry, get you emotional." I thought of those candles, the wine, Tom's third glass, the gentle voice, the urgency. It wasn't just a trap, it was a performance designed to make me look fragile. I stared at Patricia and nodded. "She won't get that from me," I said quietly. Because I finally understood the real fight. It wasn't just about money. It was about who looked credible when the story hit the light. And Jessica? Jessica had been rehearsing her role. But so had I, in a way. I'd spent a lifetime staying calm in chaotic rooms, handling conflicts, reading people, making decisions under pressure. So if Jessica wanted a show, fine, I could perform too. But mine wouldn't be an act. It would be the truth. And by the time I left Patricia's office that morning, I wasn't just defending myself anymore. I was planning how to expose her. Because one thing was clear now. Jessica didn't just want control. She wanted me silenced. And I wasn't going quietly. By the time I walked out of Patricia's office, the sun was fully up. People were going to work, buying coffee, living normal lives. And here I was, holding a folder that proved my own family had been quietly preparing to take my voice away. I sat in my car for a moment before turning the key, letting the weight of it settle. Because the truth is, it's one thing to suspect someone's greedy. It's another thing to see paperwork that labels you incapacitated before you've even missed a doctor's appointment. Still, Patricia's words stayed with me. They showed you their playbook. And she was right. If Jessica wanted to play dirty, I wasn't walking in blind. I drove straight to the bank. Not because I didn't trust Richard. I did. But I wanted something Jessica couldn't twist later. A paper trail, a record, a clean professional witness. Richard met me in his office, tie perfectly straight, expression serious. "Mrs. Richardson," he said gently, "I placed the flags on your accounts last night. No changes without your direct authorization. Good, I said. And Richard, I need a printout of every inquiry made about my accounts in the last 30 days. He nodded without asking why. That's what good bankers do. They don't judge, they protect. While his printer hummed, Richard looked up at me. Has your son been pressuring you? I held his gaze. Yes, I said simply. And his wife is the one driving it. Richard's mouth tightened. I'm sorry. The printer spit out pages, dates, times, notes, and there it was again, Tom's visit 2 weeks ago. But something else caught my eye. A phone call inquiry. Not from Tom. From someone named Jessica Richardson. My fingers paused on the paper. What is this? I asked. Richard's expression shifted. She called. Asked general questions. Tried to sound casual. What did she ask exactly? He hesitated, then pulled up his notes. She asked if there was any way to add herself as an authorized contact in case of emergencies. She also asked about freezing accounts if you became confused. I felt a sharp heat rise in my chest. Not anger, something more precise, disgust, because she wasn't just planning to take my money. She was planning to control access to it through the institutions I trusted. She'd already started laying traps beyond my kitchen table. Richard, I said slowly, I want a formal note added to my file. That Jessica Richardson has no authority to request information. None. If she calls again, you document it and notify me immediately. Done, he said. And Mrs. Richardson, if you need me to speak to your attorney, I will. I nodded. You may. As I left the bank, I realized something important. Jessica wasn't improvising. She was methodical, the kind of person who doesn't just want the money. She wants the system to back her up. And that meant this wasn't going to stop with one refusal. Not unless she was exposed. When I got home, I found a voicemail waiting. Jessica. Her voice was syrupy sweet, so sweet it made my skin crawl. Helen, hi, just checking in. How are you feeling today? Better? We were thinking, maybe we could stop by tonight and go over the documents together so you don't feel overwhelmed. We only want what's best for you. Call me back. I stared at the phone like it had insulted me. Overwhelmed. She was already shaping the narrative, already planting the idea that I didn't understand. Even her kindness had sharp edges. I didn't call her back. Instead, I called Tom. He answered too quickly, like he'd been waiting. Mom? Tom, I said calmly. I reviewed the documents. I'm not signing anything today. Silence. Then a soft, defeated exhale. Mom, Jessica just worries. She thinks, Tom, I cut in, still calm. Why is there a guardianship petition in that folder? He didn't answer right away. And that pause told me more than any words could. It's precautionary, he finally said. Jessica said, it's just in case something happens. Something happening isn't the same as you declaring me incapacitated, I replied. Tom, that petition calls me allegedly incompetent. That's not precaution. That's a plan. His voice dropped. I didn't want it to be like this. But you let it be, I said quietly. Then I lowered my voice, because I needed him to understand something. If you and Jessica file that petition, you're not just coming after my money. You're attacking my life, my relationships, my reputation. He whispered, Mom, please, can we talk about this in person? We can, I said, but not on your timeline. Not with your lawyer. Not with papers. He swallowed. Jessica's going to be furious. That was the first honest sentence he'd said, and it told me exactly who held power in his house. Tom didn't say, we'll figure it out. He said, she'll be furious, meaning he wasn't worried about me. He was worried about surviving her. Tom, I said, does Lucas know about any of this? Tom froze. He stammered. Because Lucas warned me, I said, letting that land like a stone. You spoke to Lucas? Tom's voice climbed. Yes, I said, cold now. And your son was terrified. Tom's breathing sounded shaky. Mom, please don't bring Lucas into this. I didn't bring him into it, I said. You and Jessica did. Before Tom could respond, I heard Jessica's voice in the background, sharp, demanding. Who are you talking to? Tom muffled the phone. It's Mom. Then Jessica's voice came through clearer, like she leaned in. Put it on speaker. Tom hesitated. Then I heard the click, and my stomach tightened. because Jessica was done pretending. "Helen," she said, voice smooth but cold underneath, "Tom tells me you're refusing to sign. I think you're misunderstanding what this is." "I'm misunderstanding nothing," I said evenly. Jessica's tone sharpened. "You live alone. You're 71. You're not as capable as you think you are." There it was, not concern, control. "I'm capable enough to know a trap when I see one," I replied. Jessica let out a fake sigh, like I was exhausting her. "Helen, you were overwhelmed last night. You said you had a headache, you needed to lie down. Those are signs." I almost laughed. She was using the performance she pushed me into as evidence. "Jessica," I said quietly, "I had a headache because you ambushed me with legal documents over pizza." Her voice dropped lower, colder. "This isn't a request anymore," she said. My spine went rigid. "What did you just say?" "I said," Jessica repeated, slow and clear, "this isn't a request anymore. We're trying to do this the easy way." The easy way, meaning the hard way. Was already prepared. My mouth went dry. Tom's voice cracked. "Jess, stop." But Jessica kept going, her patience gone. "You have until Sunday," she said. "If you don't sign voluntarily, we'll move forward with the guardianship. And you'll lose control anyway," Tom whispered. "Jessica." She ignored him. "And Helen," Jessica added, voice like ice, "if you try to fight us, I will make sure you never see Lucas again. I'll move us if I have to. That boy will grow up thinking you abandoned him." For a moment I couldn't breathe. Not because I was scared for myself, because she went for the one thing she knew could break me. Lucas, my heart, my link to everything good in this mess. I forced my voice to stay level. "Is that a threat?" Jessica didn't even flinch. "It's reality," she said. "Sign by Sunday. Or Monday you'll be declared incompetent. And then, click," she hung up. I sat there holding the phone, staring at nothing, hearing only Frank's clock ticking like a judge. Tick, tick, tick. She'd crossed the line. Not because she wanted money. I expected that. She crossed the line because she was willing to use a child like a weapon. And now, I wasn't just defending myself anymore. Now, I was coming for her. Because if I didn't stop Jessica, she would raise Lucas to believe betrayal was normal. And I refused to let that happen. By the time I walked out of Patricia's office, the sun was fully up. People were going to work, buying coffee, living normal lives. And here I was, holding a folder that proved my own family had been quietly preparing to take my voice away. I sat in my car for a moment before turning the key, letting the weight of it settle, because the truth is, it's one thing to suspect someone's greedy. It's another thing to see paperwork that labels you incapacitated before you've even missed a doctor's appointment. Still, Patricia's words stayed with me. They showed you their playbook. And she was right. If Jessica wanted to play dirty, I wasn't walking in blind. I drove straight to the bank. Not because I didn't trust Richard. I did. But I wanted something Jessica couldn't twist later. A paper trail, a record, a clean professional witness. Richard met me in his office, tie perfectly straight, expression serious. "Mrs. Richardson," he said gently, "I placed the flags on your accounts last night. No changes without your direct authorization." "Good," I said. "And Richard, I need a printout of every inquiry made about my accounts in the last 30 days. He nodded without asking why. That's what good bankers do. They don't judge, they protect. While his printer hummed, Richard looked up at me. "Has your son been pressuring you?" I held his gaze. "Yes," I said simply, "and his wife is the one driving it." Richard's mouth tightened. "I'm sorry." The printer spit out pages, dates, times, notes, and there it was again, Tom's visit 2 weeks ago, but something else caught my eye. A phone call inquiry, not from Tom, from someone named Jessica Richardson. My fingers paused on the paper. "What is this?" I asked. Richard's expression shifted. She called, asked general questions, tried to sound casual. What did she ask exactly? He hesitated, then pulled up his notes. She asked if there was any way to add herself as an authorized contact in case of emergencies. She also asked about freezing accounts if you became confused. I felt a sharp heat rise in my chest. Not anger, something more precise, disgust, because she wasn't just planning to take my money. She was planning to control access to it through the institutions I trusted. She'd already started laying traps beyond my kitchen table. Richard, I said slowly, I want a formal note added to my file. That Jessica Richardson has no authority to request information. None. If she calls again, you document it and notify me immediately. Done, he said. And Mrs. Richardson, if you need me to speak to your attorney, I will. I nodded. You may. As I left the bank, I realized something important. Jessica wasn't improvising. She was methodical, the kind of person who doesn't just want the money. She wants the system to back her up. And that meant this wasn't going to stop with one refusal. Not unless she was exposed. When I got home, I found a voicemail waiting. Jessica. Her voice was syrupy sweet, so sweet it made my skin crawl. Helen, hi, just checking in. How are you feeling today? Better? We were thinking, maybe we could stop by tonight and go over the documents together so you don't feel overwhelmed. We only want what's best for you. Call me back. I stared at the phone like it had insulted me. Overwhelmed. She was already shaping the narrative, already planting the idea that I didn't understand. Even her kindness had sharp edges. I didn't call her back. Instead, I called Tom. He answered too quickly, like he'd been waiting. Mom? Tom, I said calmly. I reviewed the documents. I'm not signing anything today. Silence. Then a soft, defeated exhale. Mom, Jessica just worries. She thinks, Tom, I cut in, still calm. Why is there a guardianship petition in that folder? He didn't answer right away. And that pause told me more than any words could. It's precautionary, he finally said. Jessica said, it's just in case something happens. Something happening isn't the same as you declaring me incapacitated, I replied. Tom, that petition calls me allegedly incompetent. That's not precaution. That's a plan. His voice dropped. I didn't want it to be like this. But you let it be, I said quietly. Then I lowered my voice, because I needed him to understand something. If you and Jessica file that petition, you're not just coming after my money. You're attacking my life, my relationships, my reputation. He whispered, Mom, please, can we talk about this in person? We can, I said, but not on your timeline. Not with your lawyer. Not with papers. He swallowed. Jessica's going to be furious. That was the first honest sentence he'd said, and it told me exactly who held power in his house. Tom didn't say, we'll figure it out. He said, she'll be furious, meaning he wasn't worried about me. He was worried about surviving her. Tom, I said, does Lucas know about any of this? Tom froze. He stammered. Because Lucas warned me, I said, letting that land like a stone. You spoke to Lucas? Tom's voice climbed. Yes, I said, cold now. And your son was terrified. Tom's breathing sounded shaky. Mom, please don't bring Lucas into this. I didn't bring him into it, I said. You and Jessica did. Before Tom could respond, I heard Jessica's voice in the background, sharp, demanding. Who are you talking to? Tom muffled the phone. It's Mom. Then Jessica's voice came through clearer, like she leaned in. Put it on speaker. Tom hesitated. Then I heard the click, and my stomach tightened, because Jessica was done pretending. Helen, she said, voice smooth but cold underneath, Tom tells me you're refusing to sign. I think you're misunderstanding what this is. I'm misunderstanding nothing, I said evenly. Jessica's tone sharpened. You live alone. You're 71. You're not as capable as you think you are. There it was, not concern, control. I'm capable enough to know a trap when I see one, I replied. Jessica let out a fake sigh, like I was exhausting her. Helen, you were overwhelmed last night. You said you had a headache, you needed to lie down. Those are signs. I almost laughed. She was using the performance she pushed me into as evidence. Jessica, I said quietly, I had a headache because you ambushed me with legal documents over pizza. Her voice dropped lower, colder. This isn't a request anymore, she said. My spine went rigid. What did you just say? I said, Jessica repeated, slow and clear. This isn't a request anymore. We're trying to do this the easy way. The easy way, meaning the hard way. Was already prepared. My mouth went dry. Tom's voice cracked. Jess, stop. But Jessica kept going, her patience gone. "You have until Sunday," she said. "If you don't sign voluntarily, we'll move forward with the guardianship. And you'll lose control anyway," Tom whispered. "Jessica." She ignored him. "And Helen," Jessica added, voice like ice. "If you try to fight us, I will make sure you never see Lucas again. I'll move us if I have to. That boy will grow up thinking you abandoned him." For a moment I couldn't breathe. Not because I was scared for myself, because she went for the one thing she knew could break me. Lucas, my heart, my link to everything good in this mess. I forced my voice to stay level. "Is that a threat?" Jessica didn't even flinch. "It's reality," she said. "Sign by Sunday. Or Monday you'll be declared incompetent. And then, click," she hung up. I sat there holding the phone, staring at nothing, hearing only Frank's clock ticking like a judge. Tick, tick, tick. She'd crossed the line. Not because she wanted money. I expected that. She crossed the line because she was willing to use a child like a weapon. And now, I wasn't just defending myself anymore. Now, I was coming for her. Because if I didn't stop Jessica, she would raise Lucas to believe betrayal was normal. And I refused to let that happen. That Saturday evening, Lucas and I didn't do what most grandmothers and grandsons do. We didn't watch a movie. We didn't bake cookies. We didn't play cards. We built a case, quietly, carefully, like two people assembling a shield out of truth. First, I made him eat, because fear makes kids forget their bodies, and I needed Lucas steady. I warmed soup, cut up bread, and set a plate in front of him like everything was normal. He ate fast, eyes still darting toward the window now and then. "Do you think she'll come here?" he whispered. "Not tonight," I said softly. "If she does, we don't answer. And if she keeps trying, we call Patricia. Okay?" Lucas nodded, swallowing hard. After dinner, we sat at my kitchen table with his phone between us. I plugged it into my laptop and backed up every recording. Then I backed them up again. A cloud folder, a flash drive, and a second flash drive that I taped under the bottom drawer of my filing cabinet. "Grandma," Lucas asked, watching me, "why so many?" "Because," I said gently, "people who lie for money don't stop lying when they get caught. They start trying to erase proof." He went quiet, absorbing that like a lesson he never asked to learn. When the backups were safe, I called Patricia. She answered immediately, her voice crisp. "Helen, I have evidence," I said. There was a pause. "What kind?" I looked at Lucas and he nodded. "Recordings," I said. "Jessica bribing a doctor, talking about declaring me incompetent, talking about taking my money. All of it." Patricia's voice turned sharp with interest. "How clean are they? Clear audio?" Name said out loud. "Yes," I said. "Very clear." Patricia exhaled slowly. "That changes everything. I thought so. Bring copies first thing Sunday morning," she said. "And Helen, listen carefully. If Jessica is already planning an evaluation Monday, she may already have filed something." My stomach tightened. "Can she do that?" "She can file a petition," Patricia said. "But with this, with bribery on tape, it flips the entire case." Lucas leaned closer to the phone, listening like a tiny soldier. Patricia continued, "Helen, I'm filing an emergency request tonight. We're asking for a hearing Monday morning before any evaluation takes place. If the judge grants it, Jessica walks into court first." "That's what we want," I said quietly. "Exactly," Patricia replied. "Let her speak. Let her pretend. Then we destroy her story with her own voice." After I hung up, Lucas stared at the table. "Will I have to talk in court?" he whispered. I reached across and squeezed his hand. "You might," I said honestly. "But only if you feel safe. The recordings may be enough." He swallowed. "I can do it. I want to." My chest ached. Because no child should have to be brave like this. But also, I was proud. Deeply proud. That night, Lucas slept in my guest room. He insisted on keeping his phone next to him like it was armor. Before he went to bed, he stood in the hallway and looked at me with nervous eyes. "Grandma, what if Dad gets mad at me?" I walked up, smoothed his hair back, and kept my voice low and steady. "Your dad is scared," I said. "Scared people sometimes act wrong, but what you did was right, and right matters." His eyes filled. "What if Mom—" Hates me. I felt something sharp move through my chest. She may, I said softly, but that's not your fault. That's her choice. And if she hates you for telling the truth, then the truth is even more important. Lucas nodded, biting his lip. Then he whispered, I'm glad you're on my side. I kissed his forehead. I will always be on your side. When the house finally quieted, I sat alone for a moment and let myself feel it. Not just fear, not just anger, grief, because it hurts to realize your own son helped carry the net meant to catch you. Even if he was weak, even if he was manipulated, he was still my son, and he still sat there while his wife planned to erase me. Sunday morning, Patricia met us at her office. Lucas sat beside me in the waiting room, feet swinging slightly, trying to look brave. Patricia walked out, took one look at him, and her expression softened. This is the young man? She asked. Lucas nodded. Patricia crouched to his level. Lucas, she said gently, what you did, it's important. But I want you to know something. Adults are supposed to protect kids from adult problems. You didn't create this mess. You're helping fix it. Lucas's eyes watered, and he nodded. Patricia stood up and looked at me. Let's hear the recordings. We went into her office. She played them through her speakers. And the moment Jessica's voice filled the room, Patricia's face hardened like stone. When the bribery line played, I promised him the waterfront listing. Patricia paused it and looked at me sharply. That's criminal, she said. I nodded. I figured. Patricia played more. Jessica calling me a selfish miser. Jessica admitting Tom was weak. Jessica saying she'd do it herself. By the time the last recording ended, Patricia didn't look surprised. She looked focused, like a hunter who'd just seen fresh tracks. This, she said, tapping her pen against her desk, is enough to dismiss the petition, and more than that, it's enough to make the court question her fitness as a parent. Lucas looked up quickly. You mean, she might not get to keep me? Patricia's gaze softened again. Lucas, that's up to a judge. But I'll tell you this, judges don't like people who use children as pawns. Lucas swallowed. Patricia turned to me. Here's what happens next. I filed an emergency request for Monday morning. Judge Martinez is on rotation for guardianship cases. He's strict but fair. My mouth went dry. So she'll be there. She'll be served tonight, Patricia said. She won't like it. I almost smiled. For the first time in days, I felt something close to relief, because Jessica's power had always come from controlling the schedule, controlling the narrative, controlling who speaks first. Now, she was being dragged into a room where she couldn't charm her way out, where the truth had a microphone. Patricia looked at me. Helen, she said, you need to prepare for this. Jessica will play the victim. She will cry. She will pretend she's protecting you. She may even accuse you of turning Lucas against her. I nodded slowly. And what do we do? Patricia's eyes were calm. We let her talk, she said. We let her hang herself with her own words. Lucas shifted in his chair. And what do I do? He asked. Quietly. I reached for his hand. You sit with me, I said softly. And you remember something. What? I leaned in so he could hear me clearly. The truth is stronger than fear. That night after Lucas went home, because Patricia said it was better he return before anyone suspected, I sat in my living room, staring at Frank's old watch on the shelf. Monday morning. Jessica planned to steal my life on Monday morning, but now, Monday morning was going to steal hers, because she had built this whole plan on one assumption, that I would be alone, that no one would believe me, that I would be too scared to fight. She was wrong, and in less than 24 hours, she was going to find out exactly what happens when you underestimate a grandmother. Monday morning came too fast. The sky was pale and cold, the kind of morning that makes everything feel sharp. I dressed like I was going to a business meeting, because I was, not for show, for strength. A clean blouse, a dark cardigan, my pearl earrings, hair brushed neatly back. If Jessica wanted to paint me as confused, fragile, unstable, she wasn't getting that picture today. Patricia met me at the courthouse entrance at 8:15 a.m. She handed me a folder, our folder this time, thicker than the one Jessica gave me. This is your shield, she said quietly. Behind us, Lucas walked with his shoulders tight, holding my hand like he was afraid someone would tear him away. "You're doing great," I whispered to him. He nodded, jaw clenched, eyes forward. And then I saw them. Tom, Jessica. Jessica arrived dressed like she was auditioning for the role of caring daughter-in-law. Soft sweater, conservative skirt, minimal jewelry, hair perfectly styled. Her face had the same concerned expression she used at PTA meetings. But her eyes were furious. Because she hadn't planned this. She hadn't controlled this. She'd been served, dragged in, forced to play defense. Tom looked like a shadow beside her, tired, pale, and smaller than I remembered. As we walked into the courtroom, Jessica's gaze snapped to Lucas. Her smile didn't touch her eyes. Lucas held my hand tighter. Patricia leaned close and whispered, "Whatever happens, don't react to her. Let her reveal herself." We took our seats. The courtroom wasn't full, but it was quiet in a way that made every breath feel loud. At 9 a.m. sharp, Judge Martinez entered. He was older, grey-haired, with the kind of expression that didn't bend for anyone. He looked down at the file. "Guardianship petition for Helen Richardson," he said. Jessica sat up straighter immediately. Her attorney, yes, she'd brought one, leaned toward her and whispered something. Judge Martinez continued, "Petitioners claim Mrs. Richardson is experiencing cognitive decline and is unable to manage her affairs. Petitioners request emergency guardianship." Jessica's lawyer stood. "Your Honor," he began smoothly, "my client is deeply concerned. Mrs. Richardson has become paranoid, suspicious, and unwilling to accept reasonable help from family. This is a loving intervention." Patricia rose. "Your Honor," she said, calm but firm, "before the petitioners present anything, we request the court hear evidence that this petition was filed in bad faith." Judge Martinez lifted an eyebrow. "Bad faith?" he said. "That is a strong claim." Patricia nodded. "It is, and we can prove it." Jessica's eyes narrowed. Tom stared at the table. Judge Martinez leaned back. "Very well. Petitioners, you may present first, but I will allow Mrs. Richardson's counsel to introduce evidence immediately after." Jessica's attorney nodded. "Thank you, Your Honor." Jessica stood. Not her attorney. Her. She wanted to perform. She stepped forward with her hands clasped, voice soft, trembling at just the right places. "Your Honor," she said, "I love Helen. I truly do. And I only want to protect her. She's been forgetting things, getting overwhelmed. She doesn't understand how vulnerable she is." Her eyes flicked toward me as she spoke, like she was checking if I looked offended. I didn't move. I didn't blink. I watched her like a customer trying to return food they clearly ate half of. Jessica continued. "We tried to talk to her gently. We tried to help. But she became confused and refused. She has so much money and she's alone, and we worry she'll be taken advantage of." Judge Martinez held up a hand. "Mrs. Richardson, do you have medical evidence?" Jessica's lawyer jumped in. "We have an evaluation arranged, Your Honor. Dr. Brennan will be examining her today. Based on family reports, he believes there are clear patterns consistent with early dementia." Patricia stood. "Your Honor," she said, "we object to any mention of Dr. Brennan as a neutral evaluator." Judge Martinez narrowed his eyes. "On what basis?" Patricia reached into her folder and held up a small device. "On the basis that Dr. Brennan was bribed," Patricia said calmly. "And we have audio evidence." The room went so silent I could hear Lucas's breath. Jessica's face didn't change at first. Then her pupils shifted, a tiny flicker, like an animal sensing a trap too late. Judge Martinez leaned forward. "Audio evidence." Patricia nodded. "Yes, Your Honor. We request permission to play it." Jessica's lawyer stood quickly. "Your Honor, we object. This is highly irregular." Judge Martinez cut him off with one raised hand. "I will hear it." Patricia pressed play. Jessica's voice filled the courtroom loud and clear. The old bat refused to sign. "But don't worry, Dr. Brennan will declare her incompetent Monday morning. I promised him that waterfront property listing if he cooperates. He'll say whatever we need him to say." For a full second, nobody moved. Then Dr. Brennan, sitting near the back, wearing a suit he probably thought looked respectable, went pale. His mouth opened slightly, like he wanted to speak, but no sound came out. Judge Martinez's gaze locked on him like a spotlight. "Dr. Brennan," he said slowly, Is that your name being referenced? Dr. Brennan stammered. Your Honor, this is taken out of context. Patricia didn't stop. She played the next recording. Jessica again. Helen Richardson is sitting on millions while we're struggling. That money should be ours. Jessica's lawyer looked like someone had pulled the floor out from under him. Tom finally raised his head. His face twisted. Shock, shame, horror. Lucas sat frozen, cheeks wet with silent tears. Patricia stopped the recording and turned to the judge. Your Honor, she said, voice steady. This petition is not about protection. It is about control, money, and intimidation. We have additional recordings showing threats to isolate Lucas from Mrs. Richardson if she refuses. Jessica shot up out of her chair. You little, she snapped, turning toward Lucas. Her mask was gone. The courtroom saw the real her now. Judge Martinez's voice cracked like a whip. Mrs. Richardson, sit down. Jessica didn't. She pointed, shaking. My son recorded me. She shrieked. My own son, after everything I've done. Lucas flinched. I reached back and gripped his shoulder. Jessica's lawyer whispered urgently, Jessica, sit down. But Jessica was spiraling. She's selfish, Jessica yelled, gesturing toward me. She's sitting on money like she's a queen while we struggle. Lucas deserves better. Tom deserves better. That is enough, Judge Martinez said, voice low and deadly. The courtroom froze. Judge Martinez looked at Jessica, then at Tom, then at Dr. Brennan. This guardianship petition is dismissed, he said firmly. Immediately. Jessica's face went blank. Judge Martinez continued, Dr. Brennan, your involvement is being referred to the medical board for investigation. Dr. Brennan looked like he might faint. And, Judge Martinez said, turning back to Jessica, Mrs. Jessica Richardson. Based on this evidence, I am referring this matter to the District Attorney's Office for possible fraud and conspiracy. Jessica's mouth opened. Nothing came out. Her lawyer began packing his bag like he wanted to disappear. Tom sat motionless, staring at the floor. Outside the courtroom, everything felt unreal. Air colder. Sounds louder. Tom approached me slowly, like a man waking up. Mom, he said, voice cracking, I'm sorry. I looked at him, tired more than angry. Why didn't you stop her? I asked quietly. Tom's eyes filled. Because I was scared, he whispered. Scared she'd leave and take Lucas. Scared of being alone. I let fear make me weak. I nodded once. Fear makes people do awful things, I said. But it doesn't excuse them. Tom swallowed hard. I'm filing for divorce. I'm going to fight for custody. Lucas ran to Tom and hugged him, clinging like he'd been holding his breath for months. Is it over? Lucas asked. I knelt beside him. It's over, I said softly. Because you told the truth. 6 months later, the dust finally settled. Jessica pleaded guilty to fraud-related charges and was placed on probation with strict conditions. Dr. Bren. And lost his license. Tom moved into a smaller place across town with Lucas. And for the first time in years, my son started acting like the man I raised. Not perfect, but trying. And Lucas? Lucas came to my house every weekend, not just to escape, to build, to dream, to be a kid again. One Sunday, we were planting new roses in Frank's garden, because life keeps growing if you let it. Lucas pressed a seed into the soil and said, Grandma, I'm glad we're a team. I smiled, wiping dirt from my hands. Me too, sweetheart, I said. Me too. And here's what I learned from all of it. Some people think getting older means getting weaker. But that's only true if you give your power away. Age doesn't make you helpless. It makes you experienced. It makes you dangerous to anyone trying to lie to your face and call it love. So tell me, should Tom have stood up to Jessica from the beginning? Or do you understand why fear made him wait too long? Drop your answer in the comments. And if you want more stories where betrayal gets exposed and justice wins, subscribe to Never the End Story. Because our best chapters, they don't end when people underestimate us.